All righty, what's going on, Macro Perspective peeps? Super excited for today. A great recommendation and a great connect. Another SoCal connect from Katie. Really awesome stuff. We got Sam Aiello in here, um, coach, a health coach, but has an extensive background in health nutrition, certified hormone health specialist, especially with women, which I always tell Marcos, is the space to be in. All the physicians that I work with is like, guys, it'll figure out in 2 minutes. We got you. We know what to do with you guys. But with women, it's like, I don't know what's going on with this lady. We got to figure out a few things, and then we could figure out a plan for them. It takes some more testing. It takes more assessments. It takes just a little bit more time. I think it's a little more sensitive. But Sam, I, I just want to obviously thank you for your time. I know time's important. You being an entrepreneur, you transitioning to new things like we were kind of talking about before. So I really want to just say thank you for taking the time with us today at the Macro Perspective. I think the audience is going to like this. I think the people that you're going to serve are going to learn about you here. Why don't you just do a quick elevator pitch of who you are, how you got into the space, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. And thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to dive more into all the health hormone female stuff. But a little bit more about me is I've always been very drawn to health and wellness, nutrition. I got certified as a yoga teacher actually in 2018. So that was like right after I graduated from school. And I just knew my body knew that I needed something to ground me as I was going out into the real world, into the chaos of life. And so I feel like that was like this like intuitive knowing that I didn't do anything with for quite a while. Kind of just like dove into the rat race from there, but always have been focused around working in like for healthy food companies, doing product development stuff. And that slowly transitioned into me becoming a private chef that was health focused. So, specifically working with clients who had a variety of health concerns or, dietary restrictions, weight loss goals. So, I was really hitting all platforms or even just like the busy professional that just like didn't have enough time but really wanted to be healthier and learn how to be healthier. So that was kind of what kickstarted my journey of being an entrepreneur and working for myself. And that was amazing. So much fun, but also totally, totally burned me out. And during this whole time, it was kind of like, pandemic happened. I decided that I wanted to start to pursue my own stuff and get more in tune with my body, start to connect more with foods. And throughout that journey, I also started to get more understanding of my hormones. And I actually went off birth control in 2020. And so 2020 was a very big pivotal year for, all of us, but internally for me as well. I went off birth control and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't even know that birth control was bad for you. Someone told me that it just wasn't good for you. And so that's why I went off of it. And during this time, I was getting my health coaching certification degree. Um, and I just didn't get my period back. And at first, I wasn't alarmed by it, but then a year went by. I was working in LA. I was like very busy, still didn't have my period. Another year went by, still did not have my period. So it was 2 years. And at this point, it was 2022. I'm working for myself and I'm getting super burned out. I'm not having a regular period. And I just felt extremely disconnected from my body. And it was confusing being a very healthy person, always like, I'm a yoga teacher and being tuned into my body, but then at the same time, also feeling extremely disconnected from my body. So that is what prompted me to explore hormones more deeply and led me to studying and being a part of a program to become a functional hormone specialist. And through that journey, I got a regular period and now I have also a healthy period. So it's been a journey, but it's amazing to see when you can be intentional and like actually start to focus on small tweaks. Doesn't always have to be so drastic. For some it is, for some it's not, but like there can be a huge evolution and such a deeper connection to your body when you're bleeding. All women should be bleeding, until it's the next phase when you're not. But yeah, it's very powerful to have that part of us. So yeah, that was the start. That was the kickoff of me.
That was the elevator pitch. You, in a nutshell.
Told
You're
my stories.
now. So then, my first question: which certification did you go through? Just curious.
So for health coaching, I
For,
did.
for both, yeah.
So health coaching, I did IIN, which is School of Nutrition. It's really, really common. I would say most health coaches have gone through that one. And then the functional one was International Association of Functional Hormone Health. And then for yoga, it was through Core Power.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so then how was the IIN one? I've actually had a colleague. This is selfishly for her.
Yeah.
She's been considering doing, I think, one of the nutrition ones. Like, what was your take on that relative to like other stuff you've learned in your journey?
Yeah, IIN was definitely a good baseline. I was doing it because I didn't have much to do during the pandemic during that time, and I just thought it would be cool to learn more information. I didn't even know if I wanted to be a health coach at that point. So it's definitely like it sets the foundation. A lot of people go through that program just to literally learn more about holistic health. Um, I would say it's like medium. It's not going to be the deepest dive that you could get, but it's a good starting point for a lot of people.
But it prepared you for like the IAFHAA, whatever the acronym would be for that one.
The hormone one.
Yeah.
Hmm, no, I don't think so, really. I mean,
Really? No overlap at all. That's interesting.
the overlap is food, nutrition. So
Yeah.
yes, there definitely is some overlap, 100%, but they're not. And I guess they talk about the gut, and gut and hormones is really related, but they don't really talk about hormone health in IIN. That's like they have a separate program.
Yeah. They
For
have like a
hormones.
specialty hormone, another
Yeah,
$1,000 out of your pocket, no big deal. Cert, you know? Yeah.
exactly. Just another 1,000 that you could on top of the like 10,000, that it already is or whatever.
Did you, so you said you finished school. Did you get like a 3 or 2 year, 4 year degree? What was that like what was that for you?
Yeah, I got a bachelor's in science and food science and nutrition.
Oh, no shit. Okay. So you've been in the food rabbit hole since like day
She's in the
one then.
food rabbit hole. I know Marcos's ears perked up when you said private chef because Marcos is
I
like,
did.
I was like, he's like, oh, teach me the recipes. I could tell him already like queuing up the questions.
Well, no, I mean, I think it provides like this angle probably for your clients now. Like
Oh
you're
yeah.
like, you have so much creativity that like I don't. And I'm like, dude, fuck. If I could just like come up with creative ideas, people would be so over the moon with like, they're like, look at this. It's macro and healthy. Like, and it also tastes
Right.
good. It's like,
It's
I mean,
tough.
yeah, but it's subjective, right? Like the individual
Totally.
person is gonna be like, "Yo, this recipe slaps," or they're gonna be like, "Nah, like something in here like did not agree with me."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's really interesting when you're making similar recipes for when I was cooking for multiple clients at once. And, you can tell some people like it's amazing and it resonates with them and they love it. And then some people it's just like wasn't their vibe. But all my clients, I think this is a trend I noticed. Anyone who has a private chef, it's because they're very picky. There's a lot of random things that they are just not going to eat, and then on top of that, then they have their restrictions for whatever their health things are. So it's really just a fun little puzzle I get to solve. And
I mean,
my brain got tired of that solving the puzzles though.
Yeah.
well, it's funny because Seamus, like my mom's like so fed up with her job right now that she's like fuck it, I'm retiring 100% now. Like, it's over.
Oh, finally.
Like, yeah, well, yeah, I know, right? Double dipping. So my parents are educators, Sam. And she's like, I'll help you with that things. And I was like, maybe she can like go into like the meal prep game, like with like my clients more specifically.
Yeah.
And granted, like there's other meal prep races obviously in Vegas, but something that like fills her cup. She's like, I was prepping dinner with her the other night. And she's like, I can't believe that like chopping vegetables is like, I was like, therapy? And she's like, yeah, like there. I was like, yeah, because you're not thinking about anything else except for like how you're gonna put this all together and make it taste really good. And then obviously like the components of what we're choosing again has been, my mom's been on the organic train since like the last 20 years before it was like really a thing. And I'm like, all right, well, if that's really what you need, we can figure out a way to do it. So that's why my ears perked up. I'm like, like, I know I mean, everything has stress, right? Like, and I'm sure like those type of individuals you were working with whether it's restriction or gut issue or whatever, obviously like you make their menu, but like, it's like a unique problem solving thing. I think that'd be great for her. So we'll probably talk about it a bit more as we keep going, but it's cool because Seamus, do you like cooking?
Yeah, I do love cooking. Right now, the way things are, I've just been a microwave kind of guy. Okay, I'll be really honest with you, Sam. Like, I do like cooking and I'll do like that, but Desiree and I have been like, she's gotten like some trifecta meals, some prep meals, and then I also just like get a batch stuff. Like, dude, Target's been really crucial right now because they have like these like 5-minute like meats and veggies and kind of things, and I'm just like, Marcos knows me too well. I just like kind of like the vertical diet where it's just like I just like to mash things up together where it's like meat, rice, veggies. Okay, like it's easy for me. It's done in a few minutes. But I do like cooking. The only thing I really like cooking, to be honest, is breakfast. It's like my favorite. That's all I can do. Don't ask me to make anything else. I mean, I can make a good steak, but honestly, like I'm no chef like Marcos. When I went to Marcos's house, he's like, "Oh, we're gonna do this." I'm like, yeah, what the hell, man?
The neighbor of love. It's the Italian genetics. Like,
I'm Italian too. There it is.
There it is, dude.
And then she's like, legit. I'm like, man, like the nutrition coach in me is like, damn, like I don't want the oil in here, but like the Italian in me is like, yo, just pour the oil on this.
Oh, same. I have that battle so much. I'm like, this could taste so much better right now if I just sent it, or like put a little bit of sugar in there.
So let me ask you this: did your parents or your grandparents ever make like a Sunday sauce, like that just like has all the fixins in there, like and just like renders for like an entire day?
My grandma used to. My grandma was the cook. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've asked my mom to recreate that, and we haven't had it probably in like. She's like, you really want all? I was like, I want the bone in there. I want the like little like my grandpa would throw like brisket or like other like spare ribs in it and like let it render inside of like his like marinara sauce. And I was like, she's like,
crazy flavors.
Oh yeah, she's like, you want all that fat? I was like, if I'm gonna do it, send it. Like, I want a day where I'm just eating that for sure. So plus, if you get good quality stuff, like, I mean, there's really not a whole lot in it. We can still pay attention to that. So, okay. So we're connected on the Italian side. Are you 100%?
No, I'm 50.
50. What's the other 50? Germanic.
Just ask my mom this. I'm Jewish, so it's like somewhere like Eastern Europe.
Maybe some Russian in there.
I think Russian's in there.
We're gonna do it a genetics test. We're gonna find out.
I know. I literally was just having this conversation with my sister and my mom, but it's heavily on the Eastern European. My sister is like super tan, brown hair. She looks like she could be like Spanish, but not me.
Not pass on. Do you have the same dad?
Same dad, same parents. Yeah.
We shouldn't do that genetics test. Never mind, Marcos. I don't want to be part of any family drama.
Oh, that's
Don't
so
ask
good.
questions you don't want the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
That should be part of 23andMe's tagline, bro. Is like breaking up families since 2020. Like, I like my funny story. So my relatives, like my first cousin's mom, is not her dad's not actually her dad. Come to find out from the genetics test, and
No.
like there's like a whole like back end story to it, and I'm like, okay, like because if you think about it, back in the day, like men be cheating, no
Back
lie.
in the day.
Well,
Back in the day.
I'm
Sam's
saying
like,
now
I'll
they
tell
get
you right
caught.
now, dude.
Now they get caught for their indiscretions, but they've been cheating and having like an unknown second family. You know what I mean? Before the internet was a thing. So you know,
True.
modern problems
There's
have.
more eyes now.
Oh yeah, that so
Dude,
they
I couldn't fathom how to do it nowadays. It's like Desiree and I sharing locations,
Right.
everything's on social media. Or like if anyone found out like you had a second family, are you serious? Like you know, like they know where you're at, bro. They know where
Yeah.
you're at.
dude. Not to mention that from that testing, my great uncle, I get whatever. I mean, I think he's second cousin once removed, whatever the actual genetic lineage is. My grandfather's first cousin, right? It's easier to say that. He had like a bastard son when he was deployed in the Navy in like the 40s or whatever it was. I think it was like in the 40s during World War II, like
Whoa.
straight up. And then like they've like sent the picture of, or he sent the picture after, after he was deceased. And we saw him, we're like, yo, like, yes, like that is definitely in our bloodline. That is definitely a relative for sure.
That's funny, dude.
And
That's
it all
so
came because of those stupid technologies of today. But but
dumb.
I mean genetic testing. I'm gonna spin this into like again like functional hormones and stuff. And I'm sure that like your certification does a few different types of tests that maybe go beyond the scope of just typical biometrics, more like those functional integrative things. And
Right.
I'm interested in them. I have a little bit of a like the IHP certification, so I've gone into like some functional testing things.
Okay.
Maybe not
Cool.
women specific, but
Yeah.
I think that'd be like an interesting thing to like touch on for people. Like, which ones do you find the most value in? How do you break it down to people? How does that help you like assess like a starting point, and then like how you're going to like work with them?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Well, we always, as a functional, practitioner, it's actually always taking a step back from tests and first going with nutrition and evaluating their food and what they are eating. And a lot of the time, that's where you can just solve problems. And it's always most desirable, at least for me, to start with just like how can we use the foods that were created on this earth to replenish us and nourish us to actually heal your body. And a lot of the clients that I do attract, actually, I would say maybe probably 99% of them have had a love hate, mostly hate relationship with cooking when they start. They don't really have a relationship with cooking. And by the end, they have found like so much pleasure in cooking because, like you guys mentioned, like how it's actually meditative, but also beyond that, there's the understanding that like you've created something for yourself. You know exactly what's in the food and how you're treating your body and then what's going to happen. And that's the part where I teach them is like by eating certain foods, this is how it could be helping you or hurting you. And so that's the baseline of starting there. And then symptoms. So going off of symptoms and signs that the body gives is like those two kind of connect. Those are like with each other. And then I will offer supplementation based off of symptoms if the food is probably not going to be able to support them. But those are like pretty basic supplements, nothing that would, throw your body off or like could cause an issue before then going to lab work. And lab work would then be looking at a whole, like metabolic panel. You want to look at everything. So there's different ways you can go about it. If you want to get it covered by insurance, then ideally you have to like beg your doctor, which is so crazy, to ask for your hormones to get tested. So that would look like getting your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, DHEAS, cortisol, FSH, and LH. So those would be like the main hormones that you want to have tested, and those will paint you a pretty good picture of what's going on. And then if you can also look at the metabolic panel, you're looking at everything holistically. And then looking at like your cholesterol, and that generally is like where I like to start with people who don't need to necessarily take it to the next level, which would be called a Dutch test. I don't know if you've heard of that. Yeah. So
Yeah, my
that,
fiance reviews those. That's like next
okay,
level.
it's next level. I mean, yeah, it's $400 like minimum,
And
I
that's
think.
just the test. The consult, you can make it price whatever you want, depending on
Right.
like.
That's just for the test. Yeah. So, I mean, it's super comprehensive, and it's going to show you, what's going on at different levels throughout the day with your cortisol, and it helps to show your cortisol awakening response, which a lot of women actually, I mean, people in general, but
They're
we're living
inverted,
in
right?
such,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's an inverted
They're
diurnal.
inverted relative to how they're supposed to be for women, right? With their
Hmm.
cortisol curve. It's like opposite. They should be lowering as the day goes on, spiking in the morning, and they're like spiking at night, right? When they're dealing with some
Between
sort
like
of
1 and 3.
Yeah,
imbalance.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and that's then you think about, so if your cortisol is spiking, that because melatonin, they have the inverse relationship, but one needs to trigger the other. And so then people have a hard time falling asleep at night, and then they're not waking up in the morning. So cortisol has this like bad, name, but we do need cortisol at the end of the day, but it needs to be balanced. So there is such thing as having too low of cortisol, but also having too high of cortisol. And
Yeah.
if it's out of balance, then you're going to, have a hard time waking up, or be super fatigued throughout the day, and then not, have insomnia and anxiety. Like the list just starts to add up, because sleep is so important. That's actually one of the biggest, easiest ways to balance your
Yeah.
hormones and your health in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny that we're talking about this because just talking with some people, like some people are having like some symptoms that I know, like some patient clientele based, like women, like around. I noticed this around when they have their time of month and stuff like that. When we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
going through coaching calls, it's like, oh, I've been waking up a few times per, in this week between like that midnight to like 3 o'clock. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a bit of dysregulation going on,
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting how like that works, but it kind of phases out, phases in. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're chronically doing that, there's a big dysregulation, right? And I think that's a great question to start with. The hormones can be inverted, like Marco was talking about, Sam. What are some practical ways someone could try to fix that inverse relationship so like they don't wake up in the middle of the night, so they can sleep throughout the night, which is like what we're going to be looking for.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this, I would say the thing that everyone's talking about is, the blue light, and reducing your blue light exposure before you're going to bed is going to make a huge difference. The blue light, not only does it disrupts our hormones, but it disrupts our sleep cycle. So it's double whammy of what we could just get rid of at least an hour before going to bed. But ideally, even two, if you are really struggling with, that dysregulation, and at the same time integrating a practice that is going to help you unwind. So
Yeah,
reading or meditating, figuring out what is making your mind spin at those hours, and letting that
yeah,
out before going to bed is really important. It's an indicator of stress. Usually at the end of the day, these people are probably pretty stressed who are waking up in the middle of the night.
yeah,
So then, supplementing here is like pretty supportive, to support your adrenals. And that if your adrenals are supported, that's what actually is regulating everything else that's going on in your body, your stress, and how you can adapt to stress in stressful environments. So our adrenals are, what I always like to target when anyone tells me that they aren't sleeping well, or they just like don't know how to manage their stress or anxiety.
yeah. No, that makes sense. I was about to like be a little bit cheeky there. I was like, but I like to watch TV all night, Sam, and blue lights, all day. But I would just probably say get some blue
No,
light
no,
blocking
no.
glasses.
Blue light glasses, which I'm always wondering how much it's doing at the end of the day. I wear them, but
Yeah.
I
It's
don't. If you're not falling asleep, if you're waking or you're like waking up in the middle of the night, you got to cut the TV.
Yeah. I just had this conversation with someone who's just literally like an hour before this call, even like 30 minutes, who's having a lot of sleep dysregulation. And I was like, what's going on between, you get off work at 5 and what goes on until like you're going to bed until like
Right.
1 sometimes. And they're like, well, I got into this TV show I'm watching right now. I'm like, yo, we gotta like just clip it to like one episode, not 3,
Yeah.
well, it's funny though, because like you guys mentioned this again, like the blue light before bed. And I remember I saw a post from Examine like yesterday or a couple days ago. And it talked about like melatonin recovery in adolescents versus like 18 to 25 and like how much more drastic that recovery is like for like like basically like again when people are like my son says, oh, my ankle hurts, it's like, bro, you're made of rubber, you're fine, like like get out of here. But basically your ability to recover is far easier when you're in that like younger adolescent phase, so maybe not as affected between like 14 and 17, but then from 18 to 25 it like significantly will hinder your ability to like feel recovered, which
Right.
I think is crazy because it's like maybe this actually makes a lot of sense where people are like, but I did it when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Right. Like that like really bad behavior and they were fine. Go to college and they just keep it up. And then they're just like, everything just feels, well, fucked for lack of a better term. Right.
Yeah.
So that's like fascinating. So I thought it was the inverse because I had to like double check a quick little double take on it. But those, exposure to, again, artificial light is a very interesting one, but it's crazy. Now I'm actually less worried about my kids being on their screens before bed, but also I shouldn't, the dad in me should know better not to do that.
Yeah, no,
That's
for
more of
sure.
like see, if you're thinking about it in that way though, that's like viewing it more as like a bad habit, which then can continue into when you are, an adolescent and then just keep that habit forever.
100%. Yeah. It is. I mean, anything that you like, food related things too. Like,
yeah.
This is the fine line again, like with like my having a son and a daughter. Things I can say to my son are going to be completely different than I can say to my daughter, right? How I view food or using the word like fat or toned or in the language that I say could make a world of a difference on like the psychology from everything that I've kind of like listened and delved into. And, I really do. I really do think a lot about how I project like a thought out when it's like one-on-one or with both of them. And it's like, and again, like if I start that bad habit at 8 and my kids think it's okay, but I've never educated them why it's bad, again, then they just think it's okay. And like, again, you get to 20, 21, and you're like, my parents said this was fine, this is good. And this kind of goes back to your point earlier about like people were afraid to cook. I'm afraid. I had a guy come up after a seminar say, I don't know how to cook anything. I was like, dude, how old are you? He's like, I'm 33. Like, you've never like boiled water? He's like, no, I never boiled water. I was like dumbfounded, obviously.
Dude, that's how you remember I keep bringing up that client that was like 10 years ago. It was like 8 years ago. I was like, she had like 2 kids already. She's like 34 and I was like 24 at this time. So this is like, I was like, I'm looking into this lady, like looking at this lady is like, all right, she's ahead of me. She's like, Seamus, like, I'm going over the meal plan. I'm like, this is the meal. This is what you do. This is the protein. And she literally had to stop me. And I was like, you cook this, you cook that. She's like, Seamus, what do you mean by cook? And like to this day, like that story is like so imprinted in my head because she like, I looked at her and I was like, oh, and really realized like she had grown up in a household where it was fast food. Growing up in a household where everything was just like easy cooked meals and or not even easy cooked, but it's just that, And dude, it just goes back, Marcos. I think this is a societal thing. Like,
it's a bad habit not learn how to cook. You know what I mean? Like they're like, well, it's not a habit at all. You didn't learn to do it. It's like, no, it's a bad habit that you didn't do that. Like the bad habit of thinking that it's not going to be there. Like you can frame anything as a bad habit, right? But like things that are going to be like more nourishing and health promoting. Wasn't this like the Occam's razors argument, Seamus? Like the simplest way is probably the best way and like is often overlooked, right?
Yeah.
Like cooking your own food, I see, like, Sam, I went to your page for Amazon storefront with like all the non-toxic like recommendations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, like that's a great resource. Granted, I'm jealous that you can have an Amazon storefront because every time I try to get one, they shut me down.
Really?
Need to get
Yeah,
Sam on the inside, bro.
they like to fuck with me, man. I think it's because my website page didn't provide enough value. I'm like, what do you mean? It says I like this product and here's why. Isn't that literally endorsing why I would want people to use it? It was
Yeah, that's
most bizarre.
crazy.
Yeah, I just never went back to it. I don't
I'm
even know what page
sorry.
anymore.
Try
It's
again. Try again.
Yeah, there you
but
go.
but I mean, like, again, you're like, hey, like, paying attention to labels, non-toxic ingredients, what could be hidden. I actually posted a video 2 days ago, yesterday, Seamus.
Dude, great video, by the way.
Appreciate that. And it was on LMNT where there's like natural flavors. What could be hidden in natural flavors? Again, I like just saying, like, I turn a quote blind eye to it, but I also looked at the nutrition facts and was like, yo, there's 10 grams of there's 10 calories here somewhere.
Yeah.
The label doesn't show anything that would be indicative of again, any calories whatsoever. I mean, non-nutritive sweetener and salt.
Right.
Yet there's 10. Why is that? Like, to me, like, I always question that. And then I also always question labels when it's like 200 calories. And I was like, bro, I added all this up and it's closer to like 220, 230,
Well,
like,
that's where the FDA rule, right? Like in America, our leniency is that we have a 20% discrepancy, right? Upper or lower.
dude,
right,
it's
with
just
calories.
a blatant lie with math, though. Like, anybody really like if we could have a class action lawsuit against every supplement company in America as a result of like false labeling.
And food. It's I mean, I worked for a food company and I literally had to redo all their labels because I was like, these are wrong. These are all wrong.
Give us an example. Give me a prime example. Give me a prime example.
Of a brand?
Not the brand. I don't want to smash on them, but like one of the things that you have to fix. You're like, this piece of fruit or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, well, it was just like the serving size was wrong. So people thought they were getting X amount of nutrients, they thought they were getting 40 grams of potassium, let's just say. And but I'm like, no, you had to be scooping a lot more, but we said it was only 2 tablespoons, but actually in reality, it's like 4 or 5 tablespoons. And so like, it's completely, I mean, it's changing the entire label and people think they're having more or less calories or whatever. And it's just the people who are making nutrition labels and then able to get them out on the market. There's very little regulation until the FDA comes and finds you.
Yeah.
Which that's only going to happen if someone reports you.
So, Marcos, this could be our business, bro. So like a food label. What the fuck?
A food label auditing company? Man, maybe $1 million idea.
Dude, it really could be. I mean, there's what is it on YouTube? Like Natty or Not? We could literally just call it like food labeled or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
This isn't a bad idea.
All right, Sam, you're the food scientist. We'll hit you up later.
Perfect.
Well, I mean, it just bothers me as the math guy. I'm like, dude, someone didn't like double check their numbers. Yeah. But also too, I guess, like when labels are trying to be transparent about like net carbs and they're subtracting the fiber and there's like assumption.
3 carbs.
At least, but I mean, at least that's like, to me, like them trying to explain their reasoning and rationale. Like it has 5 grams of fiber, so you could subtract 20 calories because that is what a gram of carbohydrate would typically yield, right? So I'm okay with that, but like it's really hard to do that on a little package that's like yay big, right?
Yeah, and you're not going to do it all the time. Realistically, it's just
I mean,
the common consumer is definitely not going to.
Yeah, we're talking about like the 95% of people, right? And then, but yeah, like again, like how much of these things are becoming a problem, are bothering, internal things, right? You obviously mentioned your journey with coming off of birth control, right? And another internal problem that as a man, I do advocate for women to like not utilize that thing. And I think that, and again, your body, your choice. I get that. Like I'm going to tell people, hey, do you know what this is doing? Like, I went on it because usually it's their skin, right?
Yeah.
Or
acne,
something along those lines. And, getting down to the root cause of things like the skin issue, again, probably was just hormones doing what they're supposed to, right? kind of going a little haywire during puberty. But then to like be on this drug that like suppresses fertility, and then we have a ton of fertility crises going on. Is there
PCOS, endometriosis,
Mm-hmm.
thyroid issues,
Yeah.
yeah,
name it,
well,
name
I
it.
mean, I'm just talking about rearing a child for women that have taken that medication from when they were
Yeah.
14 to, you know, at least a decade, if not two, before they're like ready to have children.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's granted. I think we should just keep injecting the boys with testosterone until, you know, but like, as birth, I think the male birth control, let's unload the gun versus try to fire into a bulletproof vest, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that the core thing is like I'm advocating, trying to say like, hey, like, you know, you can monitor, and if it is for a pregnancy reason, like you can learn about you know, it was like the Daisy product back in the day, and now your ovulation cycle with like the Apple Watch and the newest generation based on temperature sensing and all these things that, like, again, then makes people kind of like get their ears perk up as a woman. They're like, oh, you mean I don't need this thing anymore, and I
Mm-hmm.
can potentially do this. And I'm like, yeah, and there might be some other, you know, holistic supplements that you can do to get rid of some of the issues you may have been dealing with in the past. Or like what you said, Sam, maybe you just didn't get down to the root cause of food early enough. Maybe something you're eating is causing the issue. And I love how you
Yeah.
like laid out that in the beginning. It was like, hey, let's take a step back. Like, first thing, I just go with food. For
Yeah.
99% of people, before going into the next step and then the following step there, like getting deeper in the diagnostic portal later on, because myself, Seamus, our entire like performance health team, we know that so much can be accomplished just purely by controlling what you're consuming, right?
Yeah.
First
I
and
mean,
foremost.
dude, Marcos, like, I just sent that thing. I'll send it to you, Sam, but like, literally, like, the Epoch Times or something like that. Like, I think there's been a few headlines, but they're like, oh, physician schools are finally going to use as food as medicine. They're finally going to take like a nutrition course. It's like,
It's so
how late you been? Like, how late you been, dude? Like, you've been so late.
it's so alarming to me that doctors are actually like some of the more unhealthy people, and then people are still going to and turning to doctors first for their health at the end of the
Well, it's the
day.
crazy thing. I think, like in America, like I think Dr. Fadul, who also has like a new podcast called Health and Hype, like we talk about the fact that like the people that, you know, our first responders, our firefighters, our police officers, our, you know, nurses and healthcare practitioners, our physicians, our doctors, like are some of the most unhealthy people, some of the most burnt out people, but they're kind and caring people, and they want you to be healthy and they want to do these things for you, but the system is just so clogged, and
Right.
it's like such a weird, I don't know, it's like such a weird house of cards at the moment with our
Mm,
healthcare system.
yeah, it's confusing, and how it got that way. It's almost like the busier, it's because they're such busy individuals, and I think like being healthy and living a healthy life is viewed as taking time, and it's hard, and like I'm just in a rush, I don't have time. But a lot of it just has to do with, you know, like the hospital could just be not having soda readily available and all these unhealthy snacks and candies laying around. It's like, what if you replace that with just a little bit of more nutrient dense foods or like whole foods, and it would probably have a massive impact. It wouldn't like heal everyone necessarily, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't be hurting people as much and like leading, you know, to now everyone's having type 2 diabetes, and it's crazy. And like the everyone, I feel like everyone has insulin resistance and high blood sugar and all of those.
Can I be really honest about this? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something that like I've been keeping to my chest only for a few people. I think I told Marcos the other day, but like I was like at Universal the other day for Horror Nights, and 85% of the people that I looked at were like overweight, and the kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you're looking at that, and I just had to have a thought for a second that I was like, when did this become like the normal? Like I was looking at like it was really big, and I was like, oh, this is, it's like a hijacking of normalcy. Like this is what is normal, but it shouldn't be that way, but it's just kind of accepted now. And I'm not trying to give judgment to everyone there. I'm just saying that like that's what I just viewed, and I was like, dang,
Yeah.
that's, it's rough to kind
But
of
it
see that.
it goes back to the beginning education at a young age. Like
Mm-hmm.
I will stand by that for forever. and kids learn from generations past, passing down the tradition, and then like I know that they are assuming that what their parents feed them is ultimately healthy, and they don't realize what they're ultimately being fed at times might be all that they can afford. So,
Yeah.
And you brought up a great point, Sam. Like another $1 million idea. I'm gonna take the same vending machines, that like little health food vending machine that's in the airports. Don't know if you've been there
Dude,
in the airport
love
recently.
those.
The little farmers market thing, whatever, farmer's kitchen, and I'm gonna plop that
In the
inside
healthcare
of
system.
inside of a healthcare. I mean, I might
Yeah.
go to my hospital right here and be like, yo, or invent that. And then Sam, you can do the cooking for me. You can start
Perfect.
The
making
food
up the
scientist,
recipes,
what
the
up?
food
Collab.
science that, and I mean, again, like I feel like it couldn't be a hard thing if you go to these places that might need those quick, easy, convenient things that they're already going to pay for. They're already going to buy the crap, but
Yeah.
you give them the alternative, and they're like,
Mhm.
wow, like again, maybe they wouldn't buy it. It has to be like equal in cost, but I
But
don't know.
even, I mean, I was just thinking about that, and even not even everything needs to be. I mean, I am all about organic at the end of the day, and that's a whole nother topic, But
For you.
that these people who are, comparatively eating junk, at least if they're having whole foods, and it doesn't need their junk's not organic either, right? So it's like, at least if it's whole foods, it's not
Mhm.
necessarily organic. It's still keeping the cost down.
True. I mean, conventional stuff. Like, I mean, if we are going to go over the hierarchy, move from ultra processed to unprocessed to natural whole foods that are conventional into organic. Like, we have to. You got to just meet people where they're at, and maybe just get one step better.
Yeah.
It actually like saw another post earlier today was like, again, like how you go through a hierarchy thing. It made me think of this too, like, hierarchy and what you should get one step ahead of you, right? Like the someone that has a dog in like the military, their dog always outranks them, which I found very fascinating, by one rank. Because if they don't treat their dog right, then they're basically like disregarding an officer that's above them, right? But which I
Mm.
thought was crazy, right? Like ranking and
That's
orders of
crazy.
things matter. Like we have these systems in play in a lot of places that are really nuanced and like funny, but like, I mean, same thing here. It's like, yeah, Sam, how long did it take you to get to the organic train? Was it like an all at once thing, or were you like, hey, I'm going to do the clean 15 versus or I'm going to do the dirty dozen kind of approach with stuff?
Yeah, I think for cost reasons, I definitely would focus on the dirty dozen. But that being said, I try to buy as much organic as possible. It's just, my next step, I would say, is the farmers market, and ideally I would just be buying everything from the farmers market. With that being said, a lot of the times not everything from the farmers market is organic, and it's
Yep.
just because getting that organic cert is actually really hard, and expensive, especially for these smaller farmers. And when it's coming like farm to table, essentially, like it's so close, you're getting so many more nutrients than you are even if like the organic produce came from halfway across the world. Like, at what point is it
I mean,
better?
Yeah.
that's, yeah. I mean, and then you can get into regenerative farming and
Yeah.
everything, which I know some people, I know like I got some clients out here that like they're in the OC area, they got some farms out there and
Mm,
it's delivered to their door. I
yeah.
mean, that's why like summer just ended and I would say like a bunch of my clients went to Italy and like I didn't
Mm,
realize this until like this year, but like the law in Italy is like, oh yeah, you can't buy food that's not locally. Like there's like a law there where it's like,
I
oh
didn't
yeah, it
know that,
has to
but that
be
makes so much sense.
like it has to be within the country that you buy the food from. And I think that really just
Hmm.
kind of showcases like this argument. I'm gonna make a point here, but like this argument of like, okay, yeah, if you buy locally grown, locally made, locally pastured or whatever, it's gonna be a lot more healthier and all those things. Even if there's certain things that are healthy that are processed. I mean, for example, like the big Netflix documentary a few years back. Marcus, you remember that one, the plant-based one, where the two twins, the twin studies, they
Oh, yeah.
Was that already a
um,
few years? I feel like that was like yesterday.
Yeah,
dude,
it was
that
like
was I felt
last
like it was
year.
yeah, it was last year. But if you
It was
remember,
last year.
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you remember
23.
what the food products are, it's kind of funny where it's like, oh yeah, these food products are superior because they're plant-based. I think it's like Beyond Beef or like whatever the company is. But it's like, but they're made in Canada. They're put
Yeah.
on a ship for a week. They go to China. They do some things there,
Mhm.
and then it's distributed worldwide. So it's like you kind of think about like, okay, I'm not a food scientist, but that just seems really a lot for one piece of food to get to my plate. What do you think
Yeah.
about that, Sam?
I mean, I very, very much agree with that and resonate. And that's why I plan to have my own farm someday, you know, because I'm just like, whether or not it's organic, I know exactly where it came from. And it's more about the quicker you have the food, the more nutrients you're going to get. Every day that your food sits and goes by, that takes away the degradation of the quality of the food. So when it's coming from halfway across the world, it's not going to be as good. It's not going to be as good for your body. And I'm all about like as quick as possible from the source having
Yeah.
it.
Name of the game. That's the name of the game. Get the
Yeah.
source. Marcos, we're gonna have to go get another. Marcos got a whole cow one year, and he gave me some of his cow. That was
No
great.
way.
Yeah, well, I didn't
That's
buy the whole.
awesome.
I didn't buy the whole thing. We've got like a fourth of it. We split it with like four
Whoa.
families, and I still have a little bit left. I don't know what the freezer life of something is, but like I know I need to cook it because it's been about a little over a year now. Um,
Wow.
but same thing though. Like for me, it's a little harder because including like from a cow perspective, like there's cuts in there that are a little fattier that I don't always want. So it's a little harder to like maybe justify it, but like that's why I really like cpbeef.com or certified Piedmontese, because like you can kind of pick more of the cuts that like you would be more preferential to you, and the type of cow is leaner. And they have like grass fed, grass finished stuff. And
Mm.
then when I ordered that, like it was so tender. It was like I was like, yo, like there's no way that this is as lean as it is, you know. But like literally, you get to look at it, and it was like super red meat, very lean. I'm like, I'm gonna accept like the 1.5 grams of fat per serving here. It was wild,
Mhm.
and the taste was amazing. And then we bought the cow, and again, I'm like, oh, man, like the fact that again, I take nutrition labels with a grain of salt, obviously, but the fact that I could know like the ratio of like fat that's blended into the ground beef, I was guessing, kind of like irked me because the math guy in me. But I'm like it's high quality. Like I feel good. Like I never
Yeah.
really deal with like inflammatory issues with it, and I think that that's another component of health. Like, well, I'm again maybe nutty and want to look a certain way more than other people. Just want to feel good, like and
Yeah.
above all else.
Yeah.
And I recognize and understand that. And actually, Seamus, our newest thing is my wife and I are now doing modified carnivore 2.0.
No
So
way. So some honey, some vegetables, some fruit, tons of
no
fruit. No
vegetables.
veggies,
She
fruits,
said no
right?
veggies. I was like, all right,
Just fruit.
sick, because
Just
that's like
fruit.
the bane of my existence in cooking. So I'm like, so
What fruit are you guys having?
uh, organic berries of all kinds. We bought like some melon, some watermelon. I have a pineapple, banana. So really, all fruits on the table.
Yeah.
Um, the only asterisk for us that's like additionally allowed is sourdough bread and rice.
Gotta have the sourdough bread, dude. Gotta have the sourdough bread, dude. It's so good. I've been having sourdough bread every day, and I was like,
I
ah.
love sourdough bread.
She's like,
You don't eat veggies?
I mean, I do typically, you know, but in this trial run where she wants to see how her gut will respond,
Gut feels, yeah.
I'm gonna nix
Interesting.
it. I haven't had any vegetables today. I have actually been compliant unintentionally. I'm gonna also include maple syrup because I think if I had French toast every morning, I'd be fine under this. So maple syrup and honey is okay. It comes
Dude,
from
maple syrup
nature,
and honey, man. So, so good, dude. So good.
organic. You know, it's like the maple vanilla bourbon aged one from Costco.
Ooh,
It's
ooh,
really good, and I just need a little
man.
bit, just a little bit goes a long way. But yeah, so she said that, and we literally, that's also part of the reason why I was a little late, was like my daughter was having a meltdown at Costco as we're buying all of our meat.
Oh man, the time to have a meltdown that cost. Sam, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Being like a food scientist and stuff like that, this is probably going to take the conversation. I think it's still going to make sense, but what are your thoughts? You know, we're moving into a new generation. For technology, it's AI. Woo! You know, in the food world, it's like lab grown food.
Yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on like that? Like in terms of like what it will do uh for the future consumer and the day-to-day person?
Well, I think that I'm like pretty anti anything that's not natural. So, in short, there you go. But that being said, I think like what about what I'm about to say, there's like two sides to it. But like with there being a shortage of food, I guess, one could say it could be beneficial
Yeah.
to have this support. But at the end of the day, like we're overpopulated and our earth is going to naturally figure out ways to manage that, I think. And so I don't think any food should be grown in the lab. Um, that's not where it came from. There's a reason why it comes from the earth, and we should be able to keep getting it the way that we were meant to have it.
Mm.
That's what I
Yeah. I only asked this because I remember like back in high school, I made a or I don't know if it was in high school or college, but I did a presentation on like technology and food where it was this guy named Peter Diamandis, who's like a pretty big known name in like this space of longevity and health.
Mm.
Um, but he has this company where like they were talking or investing into a company that was making like lab grown meatballs, and they ate it and they're like, oh, it tastes exactly like the meatball. And
Yeah.
then now I just heard recently about like someone was eating chicken, but it was the chicken, the muscle cell, they grew it on the lattice, right? Um, and it's the chicken meat, but without a sentient being. And I was just like wrapping my head around it, like, yo, this is
Yeah.
it sounds insane.
It's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, it trips me out. I know it's happening. I
Yeah.
know it's happening. It's gonna happen. To me, it's crazy how food scientists have figured this out. Like it's crazy how the science has caught up with almost like fiction at the end of the day.
Truly. No, truly. In every way. I mean, I feel like I keep reading books and TV, and I'm like, that's about the future, and it's happening now. We're
Or
in it.
Black Mirror
So,
episode, and it's like, oh, that's the day to day.
that just happened.
Well, let me ask you this, as like a hormone specialist, like I know this is like more speculative,
Mm.
but if you were to say, okay, let's just say that this stuff is grown, they do everything with it, and their argument is that, hey, because it's not a sentient being that's like eating foods and it's having sicknesses, it's like you're literally creating the perfect chicken meat. Um, do you think that would have any effect, like negatively towards hormones or anything like that, if it was like a perfectly created meat, like the way they're talking about it, or like how I heard it recently? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Would that like affect the hormones, or you think it'd be safe? What are your thoughts?
Well, okay. My question is, I mean, how could we even know what's going to happen to our bodies? Because what we do know is that eating processed foods and foods that are not natural and come from the earth are bad for our bodies. We do know that because our bodies don't know how to process those foods. That's not how we evolved as a species. So that's my first thought, is like, how do our bodies even know what's happening? Is it able to recognize that it's not a real food and that it's lab grown? I have no idea. But to me, that seems really confusing for the body. And then the body, like, is it giving the body the same amount of nutrients that an actual chicken would have? Is it, getting the same exposure if you're having a pasture raised chicken or cow, whatever, and they're grazing the lands, they're getting the natural vitamin D, they're getting these minerals and vitamins all around them by just being outside. Are you getting all of that from the lab?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question.
Are
Yeah,
you?
I don't
I
know. It
mean,
makes it, yeah.
from an
Go ahead,
amino
Marco.
acid profile standpoint, supposedly, but from a micronutrient standpoint, I think it's still like TBD.
Yeah, to be
Yeah.
determined. Yeah, for me, it just seems so. I don't know the exact word for it, but like the only word I can say is like it just seems so sterile. Like,
Yeah,
yes, you have the perfect meat, but it's like a sterile piece of meat. Um,
right.
does that, I don't know, does that mean it's good? Is it missing certain components? Yeah, it's a confusing topic for
Why
sure.
does it even need to be perfect? You know, like we've survived this long without with the imperfection.
Ooh,
Because
ooh,
that's not the MO of a human being, unfortunately.
Must be perfect.
It is like we create it's I mean, you guys are talking about this speculative AI kind of non mumbo jumbo that like literally is on the like newest episode of the Joe Rogan podcast I was listening today, and it's just like he's like asking these questions that are deep and philosophical, and I'm like, those are really good points. He's like, think about it. We all want the next latest and greatest thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it matters to us, let's just say like, oh, I need a new phone because I need the new camera or the new processing speed, or I want to get it so that I can have the new Instagram fonts or the new TikTok filter only works on iOS 19, not 18. I need it because it's going to help me with like pushing this thing, right? Like we always really want this newer, better thing, right? And so that's like maybe what they're searching for here is this newer and better. But some people don't quite understand maybe like there is that like appeal to nature fallacy that like actually bodes true here. And it's like you just said, like I was thinking about back to our Italy topic of like you could only eat the regionally grown food. That makes a ton of sense why they might be healthier because all the bacteria
Right.
that exists in that area might be part of the microbiome that they would want to have, right? That
Mm,
microbiota is so important because it helps survive in that land. Yet here we are eating food that's now traveled this vast distance that we will never be a part of that ecosystem.
yeah. Like
that's
that's not if you're from California and you grew up Californian and your ethnic background is from there and you're eating food from somewhere else,
Yeah,
like your
Venezuela
gut was
or
never ready for that. You're
right.
yeah. I mean, and you think about it, right? Like you when you transport yourself to Mexico,
Right.
you drink the water. You can't do it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows that story of Montezuma's revenge, right? They know someone that's dealt with it. I have not personally dealt with it, but you know that's why last time we went to Mexico, I was only drinking vodka and tequila.
That's how you stay hydrated, brother.
I
Only
was.
drink the
Right.
water in the plastic bottles or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
We got you.
but for real, I mean, like all these things are they're interesting because they do kind of circulate in its own way, where
Mm-hmm.
like certain things that you argue for make a ton of sense, right? Like should be more locally grown, and yeah, maybe it isn't organic, and it's crazy because we bought some farmers market vegetables and stuff earlier, like last Saturday we went to the farmers market because they do it every first and third Saturday, next to like where we're playing soccer. And I was like, man, well, one, all the food had a ton of fucking seeds in it. And I was like, I can't give it to the kids because they will freak the F out.
Mm,
Then I'm over there eating it. And I was like, man, in addition to that, all my shit went bad in like a day. It was like, I was like, I got to eat this shit quick. Right. Like,
really?
yeah. I mean, and I know they didn't label it organic or anything, but all the
Yeah.
strawberries, like I mean, 2 days later, I was like, shit, like these things like, seem like they're turning faster than the organic produce I'm normally buying, which is
Mm,
wild, right? And I know
mm,
organic could mean like organic pesticides are used based on like organic materials, right? The word, right? We likes wordplay these days, right? Like,
oh yeah.
so I'm like, okay, like that. I mean, this might be like unperturbed by anything other than like, I mean, I don't think that like little old lady that was part of the, that farmer's market camp was like out there picking the bugs off the strawberries by any stretch of the imagination, but they have other practices that they're probably doing.
Mhm.
And it all made me think about like what you're saying, like the food being the healing source, Sam. Like starting there, I think is again that's where I start. I try not to go and dive into some of those additional functional screenings right away
Mhm.
because again, like I think it might be that we tend to overlook like just the simplest routine.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned too, like some supplementation stuff. Are there particular ones like I kind of like you feel like from all like the literature and research that you've stumbled upon, like are like must haves like in the functional vein that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Yeah. Just going back to the point though of like the simplification, I think that that's we as I mean as human we overcomplicate everything, but then especially for the people who get overwhelmed with the concept of like food and nutrition. And cooking also, like they make it so much more complicated than it needs to be. It's like, oh my God, I have to follow this recipe to a T, otherwise it's going to be terrible. And it's like, no, just like let it happen and then see how it goes. You can always change it the next time. It doesn't have to be they're so intense and hard and these rules and just complicated. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck and why there's that block. So just wanted to like point out the simplification. So
well, you're speaking like a true Italian now. It just how much? How much? Just wing it.
God ask me how much. Yeah, when my friends watch me cook, they're like,
how do you know? They're like, how do you know? It's like,
yeah.
You're like, it just needs more salt. They're like, how do you? Like, but how? Like you didn't. It's like it's to taste.
You taste it.
Yeah.
It's so true.
I think it's well, to finish that thought, I think it's because people are afraid of failing in anything that they do, especially like millennial and younger generations. They're like afraid of like this judgment that would be passed if they like burn a steak or they like cook it wrong. It's like, no. I mean, WD-40, there was 39 tries before they got it right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Thomas Edison, how many times did he fuck up the light bulb before he figured out how to make it work?
10,000 times, bro.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you're going to cook some bad eggs. It's okay.
It's okay.
You don't have to cook the whole container right away. You could cook one.
Right.
Like,
it's like needing the immediate perfect result. And if you don't do that, then like shame.
You did that. I know. Can I say something on that? And this is like actually something I feel like I was going to have a talk with a client. Sam, we'll get to your supplements in a little bit because I know they're important. But I literally was like, I think, so this client of mine wanted to do like a whole like, I think I did a little apologies here. I'm like, sorry, am I back? Yeah, I had a little. This client of mine, I told Marcos about this client. It was funny. This person was like, I want like the way I work with people. I like to like see their personality test and do these things. I'm like, okay. But just from already working with like high performers, like in their field, executives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like 2 to 3 weeks into this like plan with this person, like they're struggling a lot with like the plan and stuff like that. And it's gotten to the point where they just kind of like brush it aside and not doing much. And like, there's probably like guilt or shame or anything around that. Right. And what I'd like to like for the people, the audience to know, and just kind of even anyone really like what we're talking about here is that most people, when they get coached, maybe from Sam, from Marcos, or from myself, like they're probably like high performers in their field. Like they're successful, right? They're doing really well, but they're not allowing themselves to fail in another domain because it goes against their identity. So they're like, oh man, like I don't want to check in with my coach because like I'm failing, like, and they're not allowing themselves to fail or quote unquote make mistakes because it will make them seem like they're not the image that they like to portray in the world. And I'm like, that's the whole point here. You got to give me some trust that I don't have any judgment of you failing. It's just curiosity. It's data. It's literally data. Like, oh, you didn't know how to like do that. Okay, cool. This is how we do it next time. And you're absolutely right. Like there really isn't a right way to do it the first time. You have to go through trials and tribulations. And when your ego gets in the way, that's where you really have a hard time because then you won't get any result. You'll just kind of go back to what you were doing before. You really have to break the ego down, have some humility, and really realize like, oh, this health thing is hard. It's hard wherever you're at, even if you're a successful entrepreneur or not, even if you're a person that's at the lower rung of society where maybe you're eating off food stamps or different things. It's like it's going to be hard no matter what, and your health has to. You got to learn how to fail a few times or break a few eggs, before you get after it.
Yeah, it's really interesting how a lot of my clients definitely lean perfectionism, and then there's just this innate pressure right off the bat of like failing me, and I'm like, I don't care. I am here to just guide you and hold you accountable, but like you're doing this for you. And I would say like part of the whole process a lot of the time is them breaking down like what is the worst thing that could happen. Like why can't you just try to cook a meal, and if it sucks, what does that mean, you know? And I think when they like, you just have to make them think about that sometimes, and it's like, really, what is the worst thing?
Yeah.
Does it mean something about you? And usually if they do make it mean something about them, then you're having to go deeper, right? And like
Yeah.
figure out who traumatized you, who told you
Yeah.
that means something more.
That's it's a different conversation, Sam. Marcos and I, got our board licensing, and we're like, oh man, this is like almost therapy. So we'll leave that for like a
Yeah.
food
Well,
science,
we cut it there. I
food
know.
therapy dive. So let's do this, because we're over an hour. I want to make sure we respect your time. Yeah, let's run some specific supplements that you think have been very crucial to just general supplementation you feel have been very crucial, especially around like what you're talking about, women's hormones, adrenals, things like that.
Yeah. So magnesium, magnesium glycinate is number one. 100%. Everyone needs it. It will not hurt you in any way, shape, or form. And for women, also, a lot of the times, if you notice you're having that like chocolate craving, which is super normal to have around your period right before, but that is usually a sign from your body that you're having a deficiency in magnesium. You need more of it. So, magnesium, and then also it helps with your body relaxing. And so that coincides with your adrenal health as well. So love magnesium. B12 or B complex in general is also really good because that kind of helps with our body's methylation process to like absorb and break down what's going on both with the nutrients but also like with our hormones and making sure they're getting to the right places and functioning the way they're supposed to. And then a probiotic. Our guts need to be happy in order for our hormones to be functioning well, in order for our brains to be, happy. So
Yeah.
probiotic, making sure it's balanced. And if it's not, if you know that your gut is out of balance, uh, first you got to take the steps to like clean and reset your gut before actually going to a probiotic. So I say that, being mindful of what your digestion and like what your gut history is before just going straight to any probiotic. Also, like there's specific ones
Which one do you
with
like?
all supplements. Also, like knowing the brands, doing your research because there's supplements aren't regulated. So
Which probiotic do you usually recommend?
So I jump around, and I also think it's important to not always do the same probiotic, to like add variability to your gut. But for women, there's like a Woman's Thorn by Thorn, the brand Thorn. So I like their probiotic. That's what I'm currently taking, and that's more supportive as well for like women's reproductive health. There's also like Designs by Health has a really good one, and what's the other brand? I'm blanking on what it is, but it's like a really intense one, and it's 500,000 CFU, and that's like for when you're really wanting to like clean and clear and heal the gut. So that's like top level. It's quite expensive. Oh,
Probably at Air One or something.
Genesis. Is it Genesis? Genesis?
Genesis.
GENSIS. Yeah, so those ones are.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are good. Yeah. So a mag, a
Methylated
probiotic,
B
and then a
and
methylated B and a B12, a B complex at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want it to be
Um.
methylated.
Yeah. Um. Anything else? I have one that's like a secret sauce that I'd like to throw out there because it makes me laugh.
Those are like if we're like not gonna add anything, like those are
Yeah.
basic, and then you can start to go to other ones. But what
Yeah. There's one that like it makes me laugh. For maybe the ladies that are feeling some low T symptoms, a great way Marcos knows this is
also that?
DHEA.
Oh,
Um,
DHEA.
because for it's funny, Marcos and I talk about this with physicians. It's like DHEA for men, it can put you up 50 grams nanogram per deciliter of testosterone. For a man, for most men, that might be a little bit helpful, but it's like a percentage. But if you do 50 grams 50 nanogram per deciliter for a woman. That's her whole that's her whole thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so that's going though, that could be dangerous for people who have high
That could be.
testosterone. That's
Yeah.
dangerous for people who have PCOS. So that's why you do really need to be mindful. Like supplements
Of the
can
labs.
be dangerous for you have to when you have hormonal imbalance, you really have to like look at the full picture before you're just going to give a bunch of different ones. But
Yeah.
yes, DHES, especially for women once they hit postmenopause, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's probably like the
Yeah.
should preface. That's
Yes, I
probably like
wouldn't
the
say
the clinical
I don't
outcomes
recommend
of
it
it.
for women my age or who are just
Yeah.
prior
You
to
know,
getting into
yeah,
menopause,
it's a
really.
certain population. I think that's why like it just reemphasizes like, okay, look at the symptoms, look at what you're doing,
Yeah,
look
exactly.
at those labs and things like that. But I love it. Well, let's do this. Um, we really want to just say thank you for the time, Sam. I think it's super phenomenal. I think the work you're doing is gonna be super helpful. What are some of the big things coming up for you? I think this episode will be coming out at least maybe near the end of November, Black Friday, or even the new year.
Yeah.
What would you have in terms of where people can find you, what courses you might have out, or something like that over that time frame?
Yeah. So, closing out the year, going into January, I'm hosting a group women's coaching program. So, it's about your hormones and your body resetting. I do it seasonally. So, there was a fall one, now there will be a winter one, and then, we'll keep going because our hormones change and our bodies change as the seasons change. So, both internally and externally. So allowing our bodies to adapt. That's and like being in community with other women. It's really amazing to see how women are so in sync and on the same page during certain times of the year. It's crazy. So it's a really cool, special time for people to come together. And so I'll be running that start of January 2025, and there will be a Black Friday little fun discount code prior to that. And then you can find me and find that information. I'll be posting a lot about that on my Instagram, my website. I also have a TikTok, and yeah, those are all the things. It's Sam the Yogini
I love it. I love it.
for
Marcos, anything
now.
else to close us out? Yes,
For
for
now,
now.
I am going
For
to
now.
change my name, but that will
A
be coming
brand
in
refresh, you might even say.
Oh
a
no, no more.
brand refresh for 2025 is on the way.
Are
I
you not
love it.
identifying as a yogini anymore?
I'll always identify as a yogini, but that name came from when I lived in New York and I was bored and I just was like, I'm going to post some food and supplements that I've been taking, and there was zero intention behind it at the time. So I think it's time to have a little rebrand.
Little rebrand. I
A
like
little
it. Oh, this is gonna be
refresh.
sick.
Yeah, it does maybe limit your expertise into a market that, can. I didn't even ask your stance on like, do you eat animal proteins?
I do, but I didn't
Ah,
for a while.
Ah, see,
wait. Is
yeah.
this part of your period issues? Question mark.
I think it was. I
Oh
think
my goodness.
my food was a big part. My food and my stress levels were massive in
Yeah,
the
I
last
mean,
period.
and again, like I think the idea and understanding behind like the yogini way is great ethically, but for a lot of like health circumstances, it's really hard unless you're really up on supplementation to make that lifestyle work.
Mhm.
And
Supplementation and like making sure you're getting enough protein, which I
was
was not.
not. Oh, do
Yeah.
you think it was? Sorry, I know we're trying to wrap up, but like, do you think it's like kind of due to the fact your protein consumption was low that you were dealing with that amenorrhea?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
okay,
mean, when I got lab work, my iron was low, and so and
makes
at that
sense.
point, I was eating more protein even when I got my labs done. So
Yeah.
that was a big protein is huge. And just like not when you're not properly when you're not getting enough food, which I definitely like struggled with food stuff when I was younger, um, you're not going to get a period or it will be
You-
irregular. Your
Yeah, you're
body
pretty.
needs to feel safe.
Are you pretty lean? With like, was your body fat sub 20 for most of your adolescent?
Yeah, I'm lean. I don't know
Yeah.
what my body fat is. I'm not really a numbers person.
Seamus.
We shouldn't. Hey Sam, come get a Dexa, dude. Come get a
I'll
Dexa.
go. I'll go.
Talk to
Okay.
Katie. Talk to Katie. We'll get the Dexa. But yeah, like just between you and me, like I've had food issues too, like all that stuff. Just be careful. Yeah,
Oh,
like the
we
numbers
all
can,
have.
Yeah, we
Everybody
all
that's
have.
a
No,
coach
I
has been
wouldn't.
there.
I would definitely like it won't impact me in any way
Okay.
now, but I'm just very much like go with how your body feels, and like I'm all about, the intuition and like just knowing
Yeah. Get the
what's good
Dexa.
for your
Get the
body.
Dexa, and then
I'll get
we'll
it.
see.
I'll get it. I'll come
It's
by.
more even just for like the potential osteoporotic risk factors that you can get from it too. I think
Yeah.
like that's super beneficial, especially if you did have a period of time where you're maybe a little underfed, just to
Yeah.
make sure your bone structure, like, making sure you're getting enough resistance training and that included, now because you're still young, obviously. And we see a lot of older women with our practices, and,
Yeah.
we don't want to have that be an issue for someone that's obviously like spreading a really good message and, trying to help inform women on, like, again, healthy choices, right? Like, I
Mhm.
think, again, what is healthy, right? Like, it's a great question, right? I think
Such a
like,
good question.
and it's a loaded one. And I asked that question to my little group last night, and I was like, "What? No, I'm eating healthy." I was like, "Well, define health, right?" It's like
Mhm.
almost like what's his name? What is a woman? It's like no one can.
Bro, you're about to get like, yo, that's the next documentary,
Oh,
dude.
I
That's
know.
the next
We
million
had
dollar
a,
idea.
we
That's
had
the
another one
documentary,
too
bro.
that he just released. But like, what is health? Like, again, like, to me, it's like this view of being able to go function and perform at a high level, cognitively be able to handle tasks that I think are challenging and fun, being able to
Mhm.
physically go and put my body and move through 3D space. And at the end of the day, all those things, they all do play on each other, and it's a result of what you're starting from what you're putting out and then what you're taking in, right?
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, like, again, getting into the deeper dive on the inside, like, I'd love to do a part two talking more about like maybe the Dutch test and how to
Mhm.
Yeah.
understand that, because that's something that I know Seamus and I have not really seen a whole lot of.
Mhm.
But I think, I mean, it could be a little convoluted for like an introduction for someone. Hey, by the way, like, we're gonna dive into this deep dive thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. I would say Dutch test is for those people who are they got to know what they know hormones, and their hormones are probably out of balance, or they like really like having data and numbers and just knowing what's happening in their body.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating all that you can learn from that. But also, you can't be on birth control if you're gonna,
Ah, all right. Well,
Ooh,
and you have to be having
learn.
a period. There's otherwise there's no point really.
wow,
Yeah.
look at that. So you have to try to go through that organic healing process in the beginning, regardless, to do the
Regardless.
There you go. You're already
because
getting healthy.
I feel like the Dutch test is like the master test amidst like a functional practitioner, right? Like that tends
Yeah.
to be like like, it's our holy grail is the DEXA. That would probably be your holy grail. I would take it, but you still got to go through these fundamentals before you even get to unlock that, which
Right.
Yeah.
it's cool to know. Actually, I didn't even know that you had to have those prerequisites. So that's good.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just not. I mean, otherwise, it's just a waste of your money, really.
Oh
Yeah.
shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably have to get Desiree on here and have her run through like a example one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Be cool.
let's do
Yeah.
But
it.
yeah,
Let's
Sam,
do it,
thanks so
dude.
much for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you for
guys.
excusing my tardiness.
No worries at
Uh,
all. I get it. Life's
Yeah.
busy, and you
yeah,
have kids.
I
Can't
do.
imagine.
Aha. Yeah, it's my mind's a million miles a minute all the time, but
But
the joy that they bring me into everybody that's on the fence about kids that is like, similar in
mm,
age to me, they will constantly surprise you with what they're picking up on. That's why I made that comment about like a girl.
mm, yeah.
I swear, yesterday she pulled out this book. She knows all of her alphabet letters. She's 3.5, by the way. And she knew every picture, the name of that animal or thing, like to a
Oh,
T. And I was like, melted my heart. And she's just over in the corner reading her book. Like,
that's so
she's like,
cute.
A is for alligator. A is also for apple. And then like moved on to the next page. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I've spent enough time with this girl. And she's like,
Oh,
that smart. So yeah, like it's why I mentioned those differences of like, and my wife yells at me sometimes like, why are you so hard on your son and so easy on her? I'm like, because I'm a male, so I could be hard on him. You could be soft with him
Yeah.
as the female. He wants that nurturing, loving experience in the future.
Mm,
And I have to show my daughter that even though I'm rough with him and I can be rough with her, that like there's the softer side to men too. And it's like
yeah,
all this.
it's so important.
Oh yeah, I want her to take no shit, but I also want her to know that like you can trust, a
Right.
dude.
It's possible to find a kind
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Safety, all
Yeah.
They're
that.
out there.
They are, and hey, I mean that's why we do this. We talk to a bunch of people, try to
Yeah.
bring those elements into that, and yeah, again, thank you. And this is
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. We've been talking about our part 2 series with a lot of people,
Yeah. Would
diving
love
more
to.
into the expertise stuff, and yeah, maybe in the future, Seamus, we just book back-to-back ones with people and then have a part 2 already good to go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sam, well, thank you so much.
Thank you
We'll get all this
guys.
info out and we'll have it in the show notes and then we'll make it happen. All right.
Okay.
Macro perspective peeps, thanks so much. Appreciate y'all.